Is this thing on? I'm on? Awesome. Good morning again, everyone. And thank you for entertaining my different kind of energy this morning. I like to have fun. And when Tom asked me to speak this week, I was elated, as this is not something that I am skilled at, but love a challenge. And I love all of you, and the opportunity to share my heart, my story with you guys is something that I'll never turn down, especially because this is such a sacred and safe space. I do want to invite everybody just to take one big breath with me. I need it, so we're going to do it together, okay? On three. 1, 2, 3. Let's do one more. Ooh, feels better already. Alrighty, so today I'm going to be sharing lessons I learned in the desert, which is already a bit of a controversial topic because the desert means Burning Man, and Burning Man means hedonism, right? It's all about crazy partying and nut stuff out in the wild, but I have the pleasure of sharing with you guys my experience. Contrary to popular belief, Burning Man's not a festival. It's a spiritual journey, and today I'll be sharing some of the things that my spirit learned while I was out in the middle of absolute nowhere with little to nothing to protect me from the elements. It was a grand adventure, and if you know anything about me, I love a good adventure. I love something that's gonna push me to my fullest, that's gonna challenge me, challenge my mindset, and I really got all of that and then some. So let's see. Burning Man occurs in Black Rock City, Nevada. Contrary to popular belief, like I said, really wasn't a festival. It is a big, desolate, sacred place where over 50,000 people a year come to build something together as a community. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is what Burning Man looks like. In the center is the man. All the way around is going to be the campground. The campground is referred to as the playa. Playa is beach in Spanish. In the outside rings where it's kind of empty is where all the art lies. There's also art around the man and things like that, but this is completely full of people. In 1 week, you build the entire city, and then in another week, everyone comes and enjoys what you've built. So this was a really fascinating experience. I've never had the opportunity to have my hands on something quite like that. It was very tangible what I was creating. It was tangible what we were doing as a group, and it was transformative to really be a part of something at that level. I think this year about 60,000 people attended, which was a little overwhelming. I'd never quite seen that many people in one place, especially since when we arrived, there was nothing, like absolutely nothing. You could see the stars for miles. There's no trees, no birds. There's some really aggressive bugs. But other than that, there really was absolutely nothing out there. And it quickly dawned on me that I was going to be a part of creation, which I think is an honor to some extent. I'd never really been a part of like building a house or building a home or anything like this. Instead, I built a city. So I went with the Black Burner Group. The Black Burner Project, I apologize, is a group that's dedicated to increasing diversity at Burning Man and providing a safe space for cultural expression, which it was a great honor to go with them. It was a fabulous group of people who were passionate about love, life, culture, and just creation, which I loved. So let's go ahead and move on to what we're going to be talking about. Well, actually, let's pause. This is what I built. So on the left, we've got a picture of a young African-American man who's enjoying Burning Man. The mask over his face is to protect you from the dust storms. The goggles, also dust storms. The hat is just for kicks and giggles. The young lady on the other side, on the I guess my right-hand side, is she's kicking up dust. So kind of in this joyous expression of, I'm here, and I'm claiming this land, and this is an experience that I'm having. And I got to meet the young woman. Unfortunately, the young man wasn't in attendance, but the young woman is there. You can click over to the next slide. And that was absolutely wonderful. This is what it looked like during the day. So this dust in the air right here is pretty consistent. It doesn't really go away, and then it picks up, and that's called a whiteout. When a whiteout comes through, you can't see about 4 feet in front of you. It's difficult to breathe. It's honestly difficult to do anything, but we prevailed, and we still did life there. So next we'll go ahead and move on to what it was that I learned while I was there. So there's something called the 10 Principles of Burning Man. The 10 Principles of Burning Man are 10 things that you embody before you come to this event with the understanding that this is how you're meant to engage with one another, engage with the sacred land. It is Native American land. It is very sacred. It's also federal land. So you have to be on your game. This is a place where you are meant to behave appropriately. There are, police officers out there to make sure that you stay safe and to make sure that you're following the law. And that's actually expressed in the number 7, the civic responsibility. But we'll go ahead and we'll go through the list. The first is radical inclusion. Everyone is welcome and included. No task is too much to ensure everyone's inclusion. I actually had the pleasure of camping across from a deaf camp, an entirely deaf camp, and they walked around with little cards for them to write on because they didn't assume everyone, could sign, but they were elated to be there, elated to talk to you, elated to just be in your space, and we welcomed them wholeheartedly. There were several individuals who were differently abled in wheelchairs or with any sort of crutches and things like that. There were some blind individuals that attended, so it's everybody. Everybody gets to come, and we make space to make sure that they can come. Number 2 is gifting. Gifts are given for survival or for enjoyment. You can be gifted water, you can be gifted toys, you can be gifted, I have lots of pins and patches and wonderful things that I received. But they are given with absolutely no expectation that you'll receive anything in return. Number 3 is decommodification. This means that the event tries not to use any sort of corporate sponsorship. We try to keep it as wholesome and donation-based as possible, and when you arrive at the event, you spend no money. No, everything is free. Your drinks, your food, anything that anybody gives you, you're not meant to have any money. I think the only thing I paid for was ice, but those ice trucks really put in work to get all the way out there, so I had no issue paying for that. Number 4 is radical self-expression. You're supposed to come prepared, radical self-reliance. You're supposed to come prepared to care for yourself at all times. So to come to Burning Man, you are supposed to have about 2 gallons of water a day to survive. So 2 gallons of water a day. I was there for 16 days. It's a lot of water. You're supposed to also bring all the food that you need, all the supplies that you need, the chapstick with sunscreen, the sunscreen itself, all your clothing. So you come prepared to do this alone. The next is radical self-expression. You come prepared to be yourself and push the boundaries of who you know yourself to be. And this radical self-expression is also considered to be a gift to those around you. So you go as one person and you come out as a completely different person because this environment pushes you to really discover who you are, who you want to be, how you can be, and it really just allows you to transform yourself while you're there if you take the challenge. The next is communal effort. As a community, we do things with collaboration in mind. Community is key. You're never going to be doing anything alone or by yourself. Though radical self-reliance is number 4, communal effort allows you to come as an individual, prepared to handle it by yourself, but you know you're not alone. People are always going to back you up. They're always going to take care of you. I had no idea that there would be screams from all corners of the campsite. Hey, we have free brisket. I have an extra gallon of water. Does anybody want it? They're giving out free massages. Everyone made sure everyone was okay, and that was fascinating to me. Number 7 is civic responsibility. Though we're out in the middle of the nowhere, like I mentioned, participants are responsible to still act according to the law and with respects to the land and the ground that we occupy. Number 8 is leave no trace, and this one was particularly impressive. So we build the city from the ground up on nothingness. You tear it down and you are expected to leave nothingness. Not a drop of trash. You take all your trash out with you. You do not spill drinks on the ground. You don't urinate on the ground. There is nothing that stays in the ground that wasn't there before you got there. And that was impressive because everyone did it. Everyone did it. They picked up everything. You saw people just walking around with baggies, and their goal for the day was to pick up as much moop as possible. Moop is matter out of place. And that was just really, really cool because I wished we did that in the normal world. But it was really interesting to see. Number 9 is participation. Your participation shapes your own experience, and it also shapes the experience of those that you come in contact with. And number 10 is immediacy. Do it now, not later. Overcome procrastination and enjoy being a conscious participant in the moment. Learning this list of things was rather easy, as I feel like they kind of echo what we do in here. which felt good because I knew I was going into a community of people that I knew I could trust, that I knew I had something in common with, and I immediately got excited because if they took this list as serious as I did, then we were all going to have a really good time. And I did. I had a wonderful time. But the challenges I faced began with embodying these principles, not just simply knowing them and being aware of them. My first challenge was presented in the form of immediacy. The desert was unforgiving in a harsh environment. Like I mentioned, dust storms, also known as whiteouts, often swept through the playa, limiting visibility to about 4 feet in front of you. I have asthma. Breathing wasn't great. You couldn't see anything. If you walked anywhere without your mask or your goggles, you were going to find yourself in trouble. So I had those strapped to myself at all times. There were no trees, no clouds in sight. The sun had complete control over the day. There was not a cloud like the first 8 days I was out there, and I genuinely had never missed clouds so much in my life. But because of the immediacy of the environment, I really learned an important lesson. Procrastination and I are really good friends, but when there's dust storms on the way, procrastination's not an option. It really wasn't. If someone asked you to do something, you did it immediately because you weren't sure if you could see in the next 10 minutes or not. You also didn't know if you were going to be hot. You didn't know if you were going to have the water. You didn't know anything. So it was do it now, don't do it later. Because of this, I had to learn to respond with discernful action in the moment, with full confidence that I was able to do what I needed to do. I had no space to second guess myself, to overthink, to be anxious. And I found myself to be far more capable than I thought I was. While we were building the art pieces, I was asked to take this massive piece of scaffolding. And I think it was about 15 to 20 pounds. They asked me to take it up to the second level so it could be installed. And when they asked, I looked around like, oh, so one of these big dudes, right? No one else had free hands, and it was me. So I set off. I picked it up and I strapped it over my shoulder and I climbed up the scaffolding and I put it down and we installed it and I hopped back down and I stood on the ground and I was like, all right, we got muscle. Like, I got strength. Wow, that's really important to me. I didn't know that I was capable of that. I didn't hurt myself. I didn't fall. I didn't do it wrong. I didn't do any of the things that I assumed that I would do coming up to this task that I'd never performed before. I moved quickly and carefully and completed the task. And I was in awe of myself. I had no idea I could do something like that. And then it dawned on me that I could approach anything with that same mindset. Immediacy was my friend, not my adversary, because it called me to step up to the plate without second-guessing myself with full confidence. And that was a moment I had to sit with, a moment that I really had to allow to set in because it proved to me that all of those internal thoughts that I had, all of those doubts that I shared, all the journal entries that I wrote about not being sure of myself, that none of those were true. And it was a little frightening for a moment. So my second gift, or my second lesson, was given in gifting. I came to the event with 3 really cute pins. One was an alien, and it was really adorable. The next one was this tree-shaped pin, and it had a big crystal at the end. And the last one was a mushroom. It was an adorable mushroom pin. And my intention was to give the pins to...
Still not sure about that.
I apologize. My iPad is talking to me, and he does not need to be. Now he's talking back, and I don't like it. Okay, there we go. So the 3 pins I brought, I was like, oh, this will be cute. I'll find someone who matches the pin's energy. This will be adorable. And I did. I actually found 3 individuals who matched it perfectly. There was this young woman who wore alien earrings the entire time. She got the alien pin. There was another young lady who had little mushrooms all over her outfit, and she just felt like a cute little fairy, and so I gave her the mushroom pin. And the last one was this beautiful young woman. And I say young woman, she was probably about 65, maybe 70 years old. Her name was Sparkle. That was her playa name. That was the name she was given. And I gave her the pin with the crystal at the end because she felt magical, and it was wonderful. She was such a wonderful energy to meet. But then I realized that my little trinkets weren't the real gift. So to be completely transparent and honest with you guys, I struggled deeply with social anxiety. The fact that I can speak here in front of you guys today is a feat I never really thought I would have. The first time I talked, I was like shaking and sweating and really, really nervous, but I feel really calm today. And this feels good. So the fact that I can even be up here is just really impressive, but social anxiety goes really, really deep. I used to shut down even if I could feel eyes on me in the grocery store. If I sat in the front of class, I would have to get up and move to the back of class because I didn't like the idea of people being behind me. So while I've come so far, I quickly realized that my anxiety was keeping me from being my most authentic self. And my real gift at this event was radical self-expression. Without mirrors, a phone, and with survival as my first thought, I found myself being less concerned with my appearance or what people thought about me. And this transformed me in a whole new way. People around me were also coming in contact with me with the intention to see me for who I was. And that was frightening. They really were like boring into my soul. I had a young woman come up to me and she was like, "You are divine. And I can feel you're divine." And I was like, "Ma'am, this is too much. This is far too much. I can't believe you've even said anything like that." And we ended up being great friends, but it was frightening and then deeply gratifying, and then it became incredibly validating to be seen for myself. Rather than hold my thoughts back, I spoke my mind. I laughed loudly and freely. I hugged firmly and felt deeply. And my magic began to blossom. My confidence transformed into a state of being. It wasn't something that came and went like it used to. And I felt myself being grounded in my body in a whole new level, and it felt so good to be seen. I no longer shied away from my self-expression because I realized my self-expression provided joy. It provided smiles and laughter and love, and that felt better than anything. So when that sat with me, I think I was out in the middle of deep playa, and I had a moment with myself where I realized that I liked who I was, genuinely, from the bottom up. Everything about myself was wonderful. And to have that affirmation from the people around me was just heartbreaking, and I cried. Actually, I wailed. And that was incredible also to have the space to wail, to emote in a way that would be seen as shameful in the normal world, to have this space to just simply cry out because I felt like it. And that was really healing. My third challenge popped up with radical self-reliance. And I already think of being a very independent person. My mom says that I came out the womb with a whole briefcase in one hand and a to-do list in the other. I have always known what I was going to be doing. I always knew what I was going to be up to. I went to Burning Man with my now husband, and as a recovering codependent, I thought much more about his survival than my own when preparing for this trip. But there came a time when we separated, and I was left by myself. In this very desolate place, I was responsible for me. That was frightening. I didn't want to leave my tent unprepared and be a burden to anybody else I came in contact with. I didn't want to be stranded without something that I needed on my day's adventure, and I did not know how I would find my beloved at the end of the day. This no phone thing was real. It was, one, if you took your phone out, it was going to be destroyed by the dust. Two, there was no service. So you really just had no way to contact anybody. You had to trust that you'd find them. And I had a bit of anxiety around that. I really did. My nerves got high. I started to gather my things. I packed everything, and I stood there at the door, and I was like, "You got this. You can go out. You've got to do it." Because he went on a grand adventure. He came back laughing and smiling with all these cool stories and gifts and stuff, and I was like, okay, I know I don't want to come back with nothing to tell him. But I did doubt myself. I started to worry how I'd carry all my supplies on my own, worried if I would get lost, how I'd find my way back. There were maps and street signs, but I mean, you guys saw the picture. It was huge. It was massive. But I strapped my little bag around my waist, put my gallon of water in my little bike basket, and with no plan, I had my own adventure. And lo and behold, I had everything I needed. I even had extra stuff so that I gifted supplies to other people that I came across along the way. My favorite gift to give really was the chapstick with sunscreen in it. People were struggling, having a hard time. And I gave away probably 3 or 4 of those. I also had these tea tree oil toothpicks that were good to keep your mouth moist in the weather. I gave those away, some extra snacks. And wow, I learned to trust myself. I really did. Trust that I had everything that I needed, Trust that I knew how to ask for help when I needed it. And trust that I would care for myself the way I care for my partner effortlessly. And I did it all on my own. I had a marvelous adventure. If you ever want to hear the stories, I'll tell you all about it. But I had a marvelous adventure by myself that day. And I did it all on my own. And I'd done things by myself alone before. I've even traveled overseas by myself. But being in this radical environment, this otherworldly, utopian, science-y kind of space, I really doubted my capabilities. I doubted my knowledge. But I learned that I was fully self-sufficient and that I could really absolutely if I put my mind to it, I could do absolutely anything. So this had me scheming. This had me excited because in turn with the first lesson that I learned about immediacy, partnered here with the understanding that I could trust myself, we were entering dangerous waters. I'm invincible now. I am invincible. So the last lesson I learned was communal effort. And this was my fourth challenge. This lesson was learned at my campsite. While I attended the event with the Black Burner group, I camped with a camp called Scar Butts. They gave out coffee and spankings. I arrived on Monday, and Scar Butts didn't arrive until Thursday, and this meant I had to pick up my tent and move it from one side of the playa to the other. It was about a 20-minute bike ride, 10-minute by car. And I had to move my tent during the dark, in the middle of the dark, in the middle of a dust storm, and I was frustrated. But I tried to do this as smartly as possible. So I partially collapsed my tent, and I put it on the bed of my friend's truck, and then I laid on it, just like splayed out on top of it to make sure the wind wouldn't take it. And we drove, and we made it, and we got there. But it was so dark, I couldn't even see the stakes. I couldn't even see the hammer, and I really was about to lose it, like just start bawling. But it had to be done. So while we're struggling, and right when I thought I had reached my breaking point, my camp leader popped up. And she demanded that I use her rebarb rather than my mediocre tent stakes. Next popped up a young woman named Tiger Mom. She had snacks and water and a big smile, and she was like, "Honey, it's going to be okay." Next, this young man named Yoshi turned on his truck lights and shone them towards us so we could see everything that we needed, and it didn't stop there. People kept popping up, like just out of nowhere, and I had never met these people before. We'd seen each other on Zoom once. We had a little Facebook group, but I'd never had any sort of interpersonal relationship with these individuals. But they stopped what they were doing and made sure that I was okay. And that was weird to me. I had always thought of community in terms of what I could do for other people, and not the other way around. As someone that has trust issues, community has always been something that I participated in for the good of other people, because it's something that we do as people who care. As followers of God and of the universe, we participate in community to make sure that we're okay with one another. But I had forgotten that I also was a recipient of community. Without asking, without demand of payment, with smiles and laughter and promise of clearer days, these people showed up for me, and I needed them even though I did not know I needed them. And this brought me to tears. Even going a little teary-eyed just thinking about it. Because they really pulled up. And they did not even stop to question if it was okay if they did it or not. They saw the need and they filled the need. It wasn't like, "Oh, can I get this for you?" It was like, "Oh no, let me go grab this for you. I'll be right back." The next day, my camp leader actually made me a smoothie, and it was the first cold thing I had had in like 8 days. And I could have cried. Bless that woman, really, bless her. I learned that community was for me just as much as it was for everyone else. That I played a huge role in community, and community played a huge role in my life. Community became a concrete concept for me. Humans who want to be with you. Humans who want to help, who care. They exist, and you must cling to them dearly, and I did. Being in an inhospitable environment, building a home out of nothing required effort and commitment, and without my community, none of that would have been possible. And I felt this even more so after my campmates began to leave at the end of the event. So again, you guys know me, I like an adventure. So I went early to set up, and I stayed after to tear down. So that meant once my campmates started to leave, we were again left completely exposed to the elements. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and we were literally almost done packing up. And all of a sudden, my good friend Cowboy, I call him my son, but he's not my son, but I call Cowboy my son. My son turned and looked at me and said, "Dust," screamed at the top of his lungs and was like, Dust, you have to get down." And I looked up, and it looked like, you guys have seen Aladdin? When that like big dust thing, you couldn't see anything. It came out of nowhere, and it was blowing pieces of metal. It was blowing over RVs. It was blowing over tents. And we had a whole metal structure that was partially intact that was about to get snatched out of the air, and it could have caused some serious harm to someone. So after I had bunkered down for just a second and realized this wasn't going anywhere, we got up, put our masks on, and he gave me his knife, and we started sawing down the shade structure that we had to make sure that no one was going to be harmed. I really feared for my life in that moment. We got it down. We were safe. We got in his car, and immediately we started cackling about how all of our campmates would have loved to do this experience with us, how they would have made sure that all of us were safe together. We would have been laughing and having a wonderful time. We gleefully giggled at our triumph because we had been radically self-reliant. These people will be my friends for the rest of my life. We went through such a painfully unique experience that has bonded us, and I am so thankful to have them on the playa and in real life. I think we can go to the next slide, can't we? Yes. Okay. So again on communal effort. I'm running out of time. But again on communal effort. This is one of the art pieces that was made in the desert. As you can see, this is a freestanding, backless metal piece, and it was gorgeous. And you see all the little people, so that gives you like a bit of a scale. This is really as big as it was. I got married on this. So you can go to the next one. Without my community, I wouldn't have had this day. I went to the Burning Man not knowing anybody there, and I told my partner that like if it didn't feel good, then I didn't want to do it. But wow, was completely swept off my feet with the amount of love. Over 60 people came out to join us, and it wasn't like I could call everybody. I couldn't set a date. It was like, hey, we're gonna be here around this time, and we're gonna get married, and they showed up. And I got to marry the love of my life on this beautiful piece that was built by someone else, surrounded by beautiful people that felt so strongly about us and our bond and our relationships that they showed up for us. So that's my husband. His name is Michael. You guys will meet him in November. And we can go to the next slide. So my time in the desert was healing, transformative, and full of unbridled and uncontainable love. My experience was made vibrant by the experiences of those around me, and my experience played a large role in the adventure of those I met. I learned to move with a sense of immediacy, to give those around me the chance to see me for who I am, and to allow who I am to be a gift I travel with every day. I learned I could trust myself all the time, that I am capable in any and all circumstances, and I learned that when I needed help, there are people in my life who desire to help without expectation of anything in return. That community is for me, and then I could trust others just like I ask others to trust me. Band, you guys can wiggle your way back out. I do not think that Burning Man is an experience for everybody. It was rough. It demanded a lot out of me, but I do think that these lessons are ones we all must learn. Showing up as your true self is truly the most sincere gift that you can give people in the world. Moving with purpose and confidence while frightening is empowering and proves that you are more capable than you believe. That self-reliance builds trust, and showing up for yourself is incredibly important. And lastly, community is a two-way street. If you have access to a community, trust that they will always be there for you just as much as you are there for them. And gathering all of these lessons, these pieces, these fragments, just like the sitar, and you hold them in your hands, it allows you to see that you have everything that you need on this journey of life. Thank you.